for those of you who've been married just a little bit, you know.
It gets better.
It gets way better. Okay, so we're ending the series about relationships, and we really feel like there's some great stuff for everyone in the room. So if you're single and you want to get married, take some great notes. If you're dating, this is a great thing to kind of lean into and say, okay, what do we like, what do we don't like? If you're married, we really believe that the stuff that we've been talking about and we're going to talk about today is great to help you move forward in your marriage. And so we're really excited about this. We actually, as we were talking about this, I was reminded of this game a lot of us used to play maybe back in elementary. Anybody ever played Red Rover before? Yeah, okay. You know what I'm talking about, the Red Rover? And some of you are like, what? You grab somebody's hand, somebody else comes running at you, you clothesline them and you win, or something like that. If they break through your hand, you lose, right? And then
you get to pick someone.
And then you get to pick someone, yeah. And so I was actually thinking about this, and I thought, what a great illustration to how marriage looks. Because there's a lot of things running at your marriage. There's a lot of things running at your relationships. But the stronger you are together, that feeling that when you see that person running at you and you're just like, I'm just going to grab onto you, just going to squeeze, come on, honey. Okay, yeah, there we go. She's just looking at me, leaving me out in the lurch. Who says leaving you out in the lurch?
You're 80.
I'm 80. Did you say I'm 80?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. So, you're just grabbing and you're trying to hold on for dear life because you're like, no one's breaking through this bond. Do we really realize how important unity is in our relationships? A lot of times, I don't know if we really realize how strong we do need to be unified. We do need to protect unity. We need to let that, and so that's what we want to talk about this
unity.
morning.
Throughout this series, these 3 weeks, we are considering like our life, our relationships like a toolbox, and we're just wanting to put new tools in your toolbox. Maybe if you're new to the page of your marriage, or you're freshly dating someone, or you want to date someone in the future, or maybe you've been married for 10, 20, 30, or like Wanda and less, 50 years. So there's already some tools in that toolbox, but this is a great reminder to dust them off and to sharpen them again so that we can all stay fresh in our relationships. And so I think unity is an undervalued and really an overlooked tool that all of us have in our relationships, and so I'm excited for us to kind of dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so if you're
misconceptions
hopefully you're taking notes. Write this down as a title, or you're following on a new version as well. Red Rover relationships. So this helps us remember it. Red Rover relationships. There's an importance on unity that actually the Bible places on unity when Jesus is talking about marriage in Mark chapter 10. As he was talking, he was talking because the Pharisees were wondering, there's a lot of discussion on divorce and, what does this role play in that and all that kind of thing. And so Jesus just kind of jumps down in Mark chapter 10, verse 6, and he says this. But God made them male and female from the beginning of creation. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. What Jesus is highlighting here is the importance that we understand that two actually are becoming one. This is why sex outside of marriage is so devastating, because marriage is the only foundation that is strong enough to hold sex. Yeah. But a lot of times, and we live in a culture that treats sex very blasé. We treat it like it's just, it's another part of a relationship. It's not that big of a deal, but the Bible and from God holds a very high standard for where sex is okay and where it's not okay. And so this is why when relationships happen and there's dating relationships and there's sex outside of marriage, this is why when those relationships break up, why it's so painful. That's why, because two are getting ripped apart.
Yeah.
They were one, they're getting ripped apart. It's like flesh being ripped out.
And I just want to speak to that for a second. If you're in the room this morning, and even talking about unity, if you're like, we've been married for a long time, but we do not have unity. We're on two different sides. We're not together at all. We might be married, but we're not unified. Or maybe you're dating someone and you've had sex before marriage. I just want to make sure that everyone in this room this morning knows that God can give you a brand new start.
Yeah,
He can give you a brand new start to your relationship today. Today,
awesome. Yep.
there can be a brand new
no,
start.
No, that's a good one to give a huge hand clap for, not like a little golf. Come on.
His grace
like,
is so sufficient. And I know for me, like my life before I found out how much God loved me, it was upside down and inside out and looked nothing like this marriage we have today. I don't deserve this. I shouldn't, by what I've done, I shouldn't have this. But that is God's grace.
Yep.
That is God's grace. And so I want to make sure when we talk about those things, sometimes it can feel like, oh, don't do this. This isn't about what you shouldn't do. It's about who you need to go to, and that's the Lord.
Great, Jess.
Really
That's
surrendering
great,
your life to Him and really
Awesome.
saying again, show me, God, what breaks your heart. Because I want those things to break mine. And so the closer you get to your relationship with Jesus, that will happen. And it sounds kind of crazy if you're new to the page of church, or maybe you don't yet know how much God loves you. It sounds kind of like a wild thing that like, that's never going to happen for me. I'm never going to have that pure heart like that. But that really will happen. It will happen for you because I know it because it happened for me. So
yeah, and I think also when you talk about unity, you need to understand what Jesus was saying. And we need to remind ourselves again what Jesus is saying. It's not that he was saying you got to get unified. When you get married and that bond happens, Jesus is saying you are unified.
One. Yeah.
You are one.
Yeah.
Already. You're one. So the problems happen when you pull back.
Yeah.
The problems happen when you consistently are trying to pull away from the one that God has put you together with, and when you fight actually the unity that God has already set up in the relationship. And so a lot of times when we hear this, we just have misconceptions of unity. And so Jess and I wanted to talk about a couple of those. One of them is understanding that unity does not mean uniformity.
Yeah.
I want to say that again, that unity does not mean uniformity. Yeah. We're talking about unity, not uniformity.
That's right.
Because sometimes when people hear unity, they hear, oh, that's it. Can't be myself.
Yeah.
I gotta be like the other person.
Yeah, we feel like, I know for me, I'm a strong girl, I'm a strong woman, so I'm like, I am not gonna like give myself away, and I'm not gonna like not be my own self, and like I don't wanna just be 100% him and not any more me. And that is just a lie. That actually isn't what happens when you're unified and when you become one. It's actually both of us, 100% whole people coming together to make a whole person.
Yeah, that's great, Jess.
And so I will say, just a tangent on this is why it's important to marry someone with like values, because a little bit of this and a little bit of this doesn't add a whole lot of something. It makes a mess of something. And so make sure you're whole, make sure you're set, you know who you are in Christ, your significant other also knows that, and you have the same core values at your heart of what you want for your family, what you want for your future, because anyway, that was a random, but I think that you just need to remember with unity and uniformity that there's two ways to do everything. And if you've been married for a minute.
I just gotta say that again. There are two ways to do everything.
Because but there is a right way.
There are two ways to get to something. There's like, did you just say something rude?
I'm just thinking about toilet paper, okay? Does it go over or does it come under?
It's over.
Over. I mean,
Listen,
there's just a right
way. For those of you who answered under,
kidding.
I can't trust you.
But I remember when we were in premarital counseling, they told us this. There's two ways to do everything. There's two different ways. We're have opinions of what's the best toothpaste. There's two different ways of how to do toilet paper. There's two different ways of how to raise kids. Like,
there's two ways to drive someplace.
Yeah, there's two different routes.
Two different routes, maybe 4 or 5.
But anyway, you're crazy. He's trying to say, because we always fight about how we're going to get somewhere. So he's trying to bring that up.
Just trying to remind us all.
There's two ways.
Just trying to remind us all.
You're so wrong. But because you're wrong. Two ways to do everything, and remembering that I think.
Hold on, I just got to say one more thing about this.
Oh, gosh.
Listen, when we're driving and we get a little heated and we get into these, and I'm like, honey, there are 2 ways to go. And she's like, absolutely there are. There is your way and the fastest way, and that's my way.
I will say he's a safe driver.
It's true.
He's a safe driver. But when I was thinking, we were talking about
nice.
uniformity. I think what happens sometimes is that we have like maybe a friend that's married, or we know another couple that's married. So even with this, we think that like our marriage, that's what unity looks like. So if we don't look like that, we're not unified. Or we don't look like them, we're not unified. Or we don't talk like them, we're not unified. And I think it's important to remember that we're all unique and we have unique relationships. And with Christ being at the center, we're gonna have some things in common, but the way we work things out is gonna be a little different than the way you work things out. And that's totally okay. And doesn't mean that our marriage is further along or not as far along as yours. It just is unique. And the comparison, the trap of comparison, I think can make us feel like a failure when we're not failing.
I was talking to somebody about this not too long ago. I was just saying, I feel like social media is like a 12 gauge in a 3-year-old's hand. Because it's so easily can become so dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you start seeing everybody else's stuff, and comparison is so easily a trap you fall into.
Yeah.
And this can happen with marriage. And this can happen even in relationships, dating, and this can happen when you're single and you see somebody else dating and you compare of what you should and what you shouldn't do, and all of these things, and especially when it comes to like how we should be, and oh, my husband should be like this and more like this person, or my wife should be more like that other wife. Listen, that's just going to destroy what uniquely God has given for you to be unified with your spouse. And the
celebrate that.
The best thing that we found that can really bring unity, not uniformity, is you got to celebrate each other's differences.
Yeah.
Celebrate them. Don't nag at them. Oh, she's always, or he's always. No, they're different because they actually will compliment you if you'll give them a chance.
Yeah.
The differences in your spouse will actually help you. We were talking about this not too long ago. I've said this before, that when God looked at Adam and said, it's not good for you to be alone.
It's so good.
So I'm going to make you a helpmate. And he made Eve. What that means is that God gave help to Adam in the form of his wife.
Yeah.
So when you push, guys, I'll just talk to you. Guys, when you push your wife away, say, I don't need you to be
Or we
helping.
don't choose to be vulnerable, or don't choose to open up,
When you
or really
push
talk
that
about
away,
something.
you're not pushing your wife
Yeah.
away. You're pushing God's hand away.
It's so true. And the same would go for women as well. The same thing. It's
like you just.
And I know for me, I want all the help I can get from God. I want all the help that He has for me. And so remembering
So God gave you me.
And you're just the best help ever.
Come on, baby.
And we never fight. Just kidding.
No, that also is another misconception of unity. You think you're unified,
That's true.
so you don't ever fight.
That's a lie.
Not true.
Well, I'll say this. You might, I'll just cover the blanket. You might never fight, but that means that someone's not telling someone else in the relationship what they really feel. Because there's 2 ways to do everything, and so I'm just like, I don't want to be around when that blows up, because that's going to be a serious one, because you've never fought and you haven't actually got down to the nitty-gritty of like what makes your relationship work or not work. And so it's like, we have to have trust and respect and know that no matter what, it's you and me, no matter what, even when you annoy me, even when I annoy you.
Oh, easy there.
It's you and me. Well, it's just real. It's real. It's just, I think if you want closeness with someone, we have to realize we have to have conflict.
Say that again.
If you want closeness, you have to have conflict.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't grow up in a home that had relational, healthy conflict. I only really saw really, really extreme here, or really, really nothing. It was never just like healthy and just like, let's talk about this, and no one's gonna go anywhere, no one's gonna leave. Yep. And I think that, I know for us, it took some time for me to really trust that I can really tell him what I'm saying, what I'm feeling, and he's not gonna leave. It took time, and
You really can do it well now, though.
I'm good at it now.
You're good at
13
that
years,
now.
I'm good at it now. But you can still, but I'll just say this to the ladies. If you don't respect your husband, just stop. You need to respect him. You need to love him. You need to encourage him. Or you haven't put enough
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
I'm just going to say real quick, you haven't put enough in the bank of your relationship to pull anything out to check him on anything if you haven't put enough in that bank. And so I'm just going to say that.
Let me say this
Encourage
about
him.
that, though. What if you feel like your husband's not respectable?
I think that you need to have a counselor. You need to go to counseling, and you need to be able to have another person, a third person in the room, or a mentor, or someone in your Connect group, someone that has a relationship that you would want to emulate, and be able to say, these are just the way that we talk to each other. So this would be the thing. I would say, I want to love you and respect you 100%. But when I say these things and you respond this way, it makes me not have respect for you.
Yep.
And that would be the way that we would have that conversation.
Yeah.
Very low, not high language, not like crazy mean things. We're not yelling at each other. We're not threatening. We're going to leave if you don't start being respectable. That's not what we do.
Yeah.
But I think that being able to have a conversation with your spouse, like an honest conversation, sometimes it takes a third party present because we just can't always navigate all of these feelings and all these things.
Especially at the beginning, when you feel like you're not good at conflict. Especially at the beginning, you might need somebody to help. I was going to say, I think some of you might find yourselves in different camps when you think about conflict. Some of you might be runners, and when any kind of conflict, if you're like me, this is how I don't like it because it feels like no one's happy.
Yeah.
And I like everybody happy. Well, that's not real life. But I like everybody happy, so when conflict starts coming, I'm like, is everybody okay? Is everybody, why is nobody laughing? Let me tell a joke, and just trying to, what I want to do is just kind of, but if you keep doing that, that rug gets just stuck with so much junk over time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you won't ever say what you're really feeling out loud. You'll just act annoyed and act bitter and just stuff, because it will come out at some point. Maybe some of you, when you hear conflict, you feel like it's kind of like you are Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando. You're like putting every weapon on, and you're like, it's about to go down. We're gonna light it up, like you're just like going in guns blazing, and all you want to do is win.
Yeah, conflict isn't screaming, and conflict isn't who's gonna win. I think when we realize that we're one, this is our problem. This isn't your problem. This isn't my problem. This is our problem, and being able to work through things together. For us, before we got married, we created these rules for conflict, which kind of sounds a little bit like, but it really helps when you have rules for something, because then whenever it pops up, when something's happening, you're able to have a boundary of how far something can go and how far something can't go.
But you got to commit to the rules, because when you get hot,
the rules are hard. It's like,
screw the rules!
Why do we have rules?
Let's get it on!
But rules, I'll tell you our 3 rules, and you can take it or leave it. But rules, we never yell, and that means not even raising your voice.
It's really hard when you're trying to make a point.
That isn't the way I was really raised, and so, we're both passionate people, and so there is no yelling in our home. And the other thing that really stinks about that rule is that when someone starts to raise their voice, the other person can say, "Hey, you need to lower your tone because it's a little spicy."
Which just makes you feel
just want to yell even more.
I'm about to really raise my tone.
So there's no yelling, there's no cussing at one another, or cussing, using cuss words to describe something that someone did. It just makes things worse really fast.
Conflict is spicy enough. You don't need to throw the extra spice in there. You just
and then never leaving. We're never allowed to threaten that we're going to leave. We're never allowed to leave. And there has been moments where it's like, hey, I need to go upstairs for a second. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to get my mind right and get a second and then come back down. That's totally fine. But we've never said, if you don't X, Y, Z, I'm never going to be with you. Or if you don't do it like this, I'm going to leave.
You don't use divorce as a tool to win the argument.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
That's out of bounds.
Yeah.
And also, while I'm on that little piece, Some of you are really good with your words, and you're really forceful, and you're really aggressive. So all you see is an argument as a time for you to win. And so you keep winning and winning and winning. But I want to let you know you might be winning arguments, but you're losing your marriage.
Yeah.
Because you're beating your spouse down.
Yeah.
And you're not having humility to where you could see there's some parts that you might be wrong in, and there's some things that you need to. So I just say, if you're one of those people that loves to win and loves to just win the argument all the time, and you just got to be right, got to be right, got to be right, it might be doing some really detrimental things to your marriage, and that's not healthy conflict.
Yeah.
Because it's not our issue. It's somebody who's going to win and somebody who is going to lose.
And I'll just say off of that too, if like maybe you're like, I'm kind of like you, Jessica, I've never seen healthy conflict. I've never seen a marriage last the test of time. I've never seen relationships go through hard things and they stay and they keep moving forward again. I would say this is the perfect opportunity for you to find a connect group. Debbie and Sammy Chester, they lead a connect group. They're a married couple. We trust their marriage. There's many others. We have over 30 connect groups that meet every month. But
and you can find those all on the app.
You can find it on the app.
From New Heart Church.
I'll just say, get some people in your life that have a marriage that's lasted longer than yours. Get some people in your life that you can trust, and you can say things that really aggravate you and upset you, and you can have someone that can help you work through some things. Get a mentor. Go and see a counselor to talk through some things. Like, these are all healthy, good tools, good things to be able to work through conflict. And I want to share a scripture about sharing things. Go.
Oh, yes.
I was going to say, Proverbs 28:13 says, a man who refuses to admit his mistakes can never be successful. But if he confesses and forsakes them, he gets another chance. He gets another chance.
Translation, I'm sorry.
Yeah, be humble and it's okay. And this is the thing, this isn't just for married couples. This is for friendships. This is for relationships with your leaders, with your boss, whatever, and your workplace, like anyone that's leading you, just to be able to say, yeah, I missed it.
Yep.
And I'm sorry. And you get another chance. And this is truth. This isn't just like this idea that we have. This is God's truth for your life. And so for me, I need another chance, and I need another chance, and I'm gonna need another chance again after that. And so being able to be humble is a good ingredient to put into that.
Yeah, and you understand with conflict too, that conflict is inevitable, really.
Yeah.
Conflict is inevitable,
Yeah.
but drama is a choice. And so
that is so good.
What that means is
conflict is inevitable, drama is a choice. Yeah.
What that means is if you're talking to more people about your issue than your actual spouse, and you've talked to your parents and your aunt and your uncle and your third cousin twice removed, and you got like 18 people that you've spilled all of your side of the story to, I want to let you know that that's not conflict, that's gossip.
Yeah.
And it actually just hurts your relationships. So if you have, this is not just for marriage, it's for if you have something that you feel like you have a question about, or you feel like something's blocking a relationship, you need to go to that person and not to everybody else.
Yeah.
It will hurt you every single time. It doesn't fix the relationship,
It's
it
true.
only hurts
it's worth it. Relationships are everything.
We
It's
don't
worth
need a bunch of massive collateral damage because we can't handle conflict well.
Yeah, that's good.
So we've got to be able to learn, and so have the humility to be like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna walk.
I think that's when we do just speak up and we say something. Healthy conflict. We need to make sure that our words are constructive, that they are true, that they're necessary, that they're kind, that they pass those three things before they actually come out of our mouth. Because there's a lot of things I can think, but I'm like, that's not kind. I'm not gonna say that. I'm the only one. Everyone's looking at me like, you don't ever have those thoughts. Okay, that's perfect. They've got great marriages.
They're all just listening.
That's awesome. But true, necessary, and kind. And I think remembering that we need to speak the truth, say the truth, but do it in love. Like, truly walk out Ephesians 4. Speak the truth in love. Being able, when you love someone, like for Ben and I, like I want to move towards him and work through a conflict because I love him. And I'm going to speak that truth. I'm going to dig through whatever it is we need to dig through so that we can become closer instead of saying, nah, I don't want to mess with that.
Yeah.
It pushes them away.
And then one thing on to that, and then we'll move to this last piece. I'm talking to some of you who, in conflict, you shut down and you don't talk. You have you have to force yourself to talk.
Yeah.
You have to say some words. You cannot shut down and think, well, if I don't say anything, at some point this will pass. It's never going to work that way. So you got to be, some of you who don't talk a lot and don't have a lot of words, and you just, there's a lot of things you think, but there's not a lot of things you say. I'm not saying that's bad. That's just how God made you. But I am saying you have to force yourself to have a conversation. Yeah. You have to force yourself to get in there and actually say some of those things, because the other person, if it's just for, Jess and I have no problem talking and stuff, but Jess, in conflict, she is a processor. Yeah. So she I
don't have a lot of words, believe it or not.
In the time.
In the moment.
In the moment. She's just sitting there. I am a verbal processor. That means I say 8,000 million words until I figure out exactly what I think. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And so it can frustrate me when I'm talking to Jess. I'm like, do you not have anything to say? I'm talking. I've got all this stuff.
Lower your tone. Lower your tone. No.
Says that. that actually is real. That is actually what happens. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
But it takes me some minutes, and it takes me some moments, and sometimes it's longer than just 10 minutes for me to really figure out what am I feeling about this, and really pray and ask God for the words, because I think in the piece of that with me, and a piece of why I'm like that, and if you're like that might be this case, is that I've made a lot of mistakes with saying too many words and being a little too harsh, a little too fast, and I know that I can't take my words back once I say them to him. And if I'm upset with him, those words, I can ask for forgiveness, and he has forgiven me. I'm not saying that, but I want to try to be slow to speak and be able to really walk that out. And so I'm like, I want to say the right things to you, and all the words overwhelm me. And I'm like, just let's have silence for just a minute, and then we work it out.
Yeah, then we work it out. That's great. So thank you guys for listening to us as we counsel each other up here.
I'm like, we're just
I know
everywhere.
you guys are all like, tell us your problems. All right, I'll tell you everything
we're sitting
you want to know.
in the room. Yeah,
so it's great. Last thing about unity, unity just doesn't happen. Yeah. Unity is produced when it's protected.
Yeah.
Unity is produced when it's protected.
Yeah.
Meaning, you've got to take an aggressive stance to consistently build unity in your marriage and in your relationships.
Yeah.
You've got to consistently walk towards that. Yeah. It's not just a one-time thing, because we're all changing. And for me and Jess, we have found that one of the best ways to have a unified marriage, one of the best ways that we can be closer is opening up our hearts and our relationship with God to each other.
Yeah.
Things like praying together. Things like I was reading my Bible and I felt like God said this to me, like that one statement. Things like literally like sitting together in church.
Yeah.
Serving together. Doing these things. There's a scripture in Ecclesiastes that says a three-corded strand is not easily broken. And the picture that I have in my mind is of Jess, myself, and God, all wrapped together.
Yeah.
And it's not easily broken. And so these things are really important, but sometimes we can feel a little inadequate when it comes to this.
Yeah. And I would say, even when as you were saying that, I would say that like those three things, that is how God set up our life to be. But a lot of times that third thing ends up being our schedule of who's taking the kids when, how are we doing the shuffle, our money, how are we going to pay for this, how are we going to do this. It isn't actually the Lord. And so if you're in this room, I want to again speak hope. You're like, we don't talk about those kind of things. I don't know where you came from, but that isn't my relationship, and we're doing just fine. I'm going to give you just one step, because all of us can take one step, right? We can all take one step forward. So if you're married in this room, go on a date with your spouse.
Yes.
Go on a date with your spouse without your cell phones.
Awesome.
And be able to actually just look at each other in the eyes and ask each other, how can I be praying for you this week? What's something going on this week that you're thinking about? What's going on? What's going on in your mind? What's going on in your heart? and be the initiator in that. It doesn't matter if you're the guy or the girl, be the initiator in that, and being able to say like, hey, let's spend some time together, just the two of us. And I think,
And if you've never done that before, that's gonna feel so awkward.
the questions you're saying to ask that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you're gonna just feel like you went out on a limb, and you're like, I just feel so weird about talking about this. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because you're talking about something that matters.
Yeah.
You're talking about something that really, really matters, and it's really personal to each other.
Yeah. And maybe you're like, we've never had those kind of conversations before, and we've had them, they've never ended right, and we're not on the same page with those things. I know there's a large spectrum of people in this room this morning. It's not everyone that's been married for 50 years and just so in love with each other. I understand that. I'm under no thought that that isn't the case. But I want you to know that God can heal you, heal your relationship, heal your heart from past hurts, heal your heart from generations of disappointment. I don't know what it is, the heaviness of why it's hard to connect with your spouse, the heaviness of why it's really hard to open up. We don't know what your story is, but God does, and He sees you, and He's for you, and He's not going to leave you the same way you came. He doesn't want to. He wants you to take that step forward, that step towards healing, that step towards restoration. And whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you're divorced, that actually, the category doesn't matter. We can all take a step forward. That doesn't matter. It's not what box you check when you're in this room. It's you and the Lord and where you are with Him and Him moving your life forward. And so I pray that this morning that you had some hope injected into your soul, and that you know that the best really is yet to come for your relationship, because God's in the center.